धीमहि यो यो नमः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नमः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। परमदयाल प्रभु परमदयाल रामकृष्ण प्रभु परमदयाल। परमदयाल प्रभु परमदयाल रामकृष्ण प्रभु परमदयाल। परम कृपाल परम कृपाल श्री मां शारदा परम कृपाल। परम कृपाल परम कृपाल श्री मां शारदा परम कृपाल। करुणा सागर युग अवतार दया हमारी करो भव पार। करुणा सागर युग अवतार दया हमारी करो भव पार। परम दयाल प्रभु परम दयाल राम कृष्ण प्रभु परम दयाल। परम दयाल प्रभु परम दयाल राम कृष्ण प्रभु परम दयाल। परम दयाल प्रभु परम दयाल राम कृष्ण प्रभु परम दयाल। परम दयाल प्रभु परम दयाल राम कृष्ण प्रभु परम दयाल। परम कृपाल परम कृपाल श्री मां शारदा परम कृपाल। परम कृपाल परम कृपाल श्री मां शारदा परम कृपाल। करुणा सागर युग अवतार दया हमारी करो भव पार। करुणा सागर युग अवतार दया हमारी करो भव पार। परम दयाल प्रभु परम दयाल राम कृष्ण प्रभु परम दयाल। परम दयाल प्रभु परम दयाल राम कृष्ण प्रभु परम दयाल। परम दयाल प्रभु परम दयाल राम कृष्ण प्रभु परम दयाल। ओम श्री राम कृष्ण भगवान की जय। ओम वेल मुरुगा vadivela वेल मुरुगा vadivela वेल मुरुगा vadivela वेल मुरुगा vadivela। कलियुग वरदा शिव बाला कलियुग वरदा शिव बाला।
വരദാ ശിവബാല
മായിലേറി വരുവാൻ സുബ്രഹ്മണ്യ
മായിലേറി വരുവാൻ സുബ്രഹ്മണ്യ
മായിലേറി വരുവാൻ സുബ്രഹ്മണ്യ
മായിലേറി വരുവാൻ സുബ്രഹ്മണ്യ
വെற்றிവേല ആരമുക
വെற்றிവേല ആരുമുഖ
വെற்றிവേല ആരമുക
വെற்றிവേല ആരുമുഖ
കലിയുഗ വരദാ ശിവബാല
കലിയുഗ വരദാ ശിവബാല
കലിയുഗ വരദാ ശിവബാല
കലിയുഗ വരദാ ശിവബാല
വേൽമുരുകാ വടിവേല
വേൽമുരുകാ വടിവേല
വേൽമുരുകാ വടിവേല
വേൽമുരുകാ വടിവേല
കലിയുഗ വരദാ ശിവബാല
കലിയുഗ വരദാ ശിവബാല
കലിയുഗ വരദാ ശിവബാല
കലിയുഗ വരദാ ശിവബാല
വേൽമുരുകാ വടിവേല
വേൽമുരുകാ വടിവേല
കലിയുഗ വരദാ ശിവബാല
കലിയുഗ വരദാ ശിവബാല
മായിലേറി വരുവാൻ സുബ്രഹ്മണ്യ
മയിലേറി വരുവാൻ സുബ്രഹ്മണ്യ
മായിലേറി വരുവാൻ സുബ്രഹ്മണ്യ
മയിലേറി വരുവാൻ സുബ്രഹ്മണ്യ
വെற்றிവേല ആരമുക
വെற்றிവേല ആരുമുഖ
വെற்றிവേല ആരമുക
വെற்றிവേല ആരുമുഖ
കലിയുഗ വരദാ ശിവബാല
കലിയുഗ വരദാ ശിവബാല
കലിയുഗ വരദാ ശിവബാല
കലിയുഗ വരദാ ശിവബാല
വേൽമുരുകാ വടിവേല
വേൽമുരുകാ വടിവേല
ഓം ശ്രീരാമ കൃഷ്ണ ഭഗവാൻ കീ ജയ
कृष्णा कृष्णा गाता जाओ कृष्ण का नाम प्यारा है कृष्ण का नाम प्यारा है कृष्णा कृष्णा गाता जाओ कृष्ण का नाम प्यारा है कृष्ण का नाम प्यारा है कन्हैया लाल रे। मुरली मधुर सुनाता है कृष्ण कन्हैया लाल रे। मुरली मधुर सुनाता है कृष्ण कन्हैया लाल रे। राम राम गाता जाओ, राम का नाम प्यारा है। राम का नाम प्यारा है। राम राम गाता जाओ, राम का नाम प्यारा है। 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा गाता जाओ, कृष्ण का नाम प्यारा है। कृष्ण का नाम प्यारा है। ओम श्री राम कृष्ण भगवान की जय। पवन सुत हनुमान की जय। श्री अम्बे अम्बे मात की जय। श्री कृष्ण कन्हैया लाल की जय।
हो जगना पालनहार हो जगना पालनहार મને તારો એક સહારો છે.
જગના પાલનહાર મને તારો એક સહારો છે.
તને પાડી રહ્યો પુકાર, હો વાલા તને પાડી રહ્યો પુકાર, મને તારો એક સહારો છે.
ઓ જગના પાલનહાર મને તારો એક સહારો છે.
હો જગના પાલનહાર મને તારો એક સહારો છે.
ઓ જગના પાલનહાર મને તારો એક સહારો છે.
તારા ભજનમાં મસ્ત રહીને જીવન મારું વિતાવું.
તારા ભજનમાં મસ્ત રહીને જીવન અમારું વિતાવું.
અંત સમયે ભજન કરતા,
અંત સમયે ભજન કરતા
તારામાં મારે સમાવું.
હો તારામાં મારે સમાવો.
ઓ દુનિયાના ગજનાર,
હો દુનિયાના ગદનાર મને તારો એક સહારો છે.
જગના પાલનહાર મને તારો એક સહારો છે.
હો જગના પાલનહાર મને તારો એક સહારો
મને તારો એક સહારો છે.
ઓ જગના પાલનહાર મને તારો એક સહારો છે.
ઓ જગના પાલનહાર.
ઓમ શ્રી રામ કૃષ્ણ ભગવાનની જય.
ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. Blessed are the parents who took care of the divine child. Blessed are the people who, without seeing him, have inherited his invaluable spiritual legacy. And thrice blessed are the few who saw him, heard his word, touched him, talked to him, and lived with him. In the life of Ramakrishna, the man God, wrote Romain Roland, I am about to relate the life of this Jacob's ladder, whereon the twofold unbroken life of the divine in man ascends and descends between heaven and earth. Revered Pravrajika Ishta Pranamataji, brothers, sisters, and dear children, Om Namo Narayanaya. This morning, my talk is taken from Sri Ramakrishna, the Prophet of the New Age by Richard Schiffman. Describing the very early years of deep spiritual bonding between Master and Rakhal Maharaj, later Swami Brahmananda. One of Sri Ramakrishna's favorite story was about the mystic Homa bird of the Vedas. The bird dwells high in the sky and never descends to earth. It lays its egg in the air and the egg begins to fall. But the bird lives at such a dizzy height that the egg hatches whilst falling. The fledgling comes out and continues to plummet, but it is so high that its wings unfold and its eyes open. Then the young bird finds that it is dashing down towards the earth and will be killed instantly, so it soars up towards its mother in the sky. Then its one goal is to reach its mother. Boys like Rakhal are like that bird. From the earliest childhood, they see the emptiness of the world, and their one thought is how to reach the mother, how to realize God. Rakhal Maharaj, the future first president of the Sri Ramakrishna Math and Mission, was a revered saint in his own right. As a youth of intense spirituality and unwavering devotion to the Master, Rakhal was one of Sri Ramakrishna considered to be his spiritual son. Born to a wealthy land-owning family in the village of Sikra near Kolkata, he was naturally affectionate and mild-mannered, boyish and a dreamer. He showed very little interest for academic studies, but preferred fishing, gardening, and singing devotional songs to the deadening routine of the classroom. And true to Master's analogy of the Homa bird, one imperative thought haunted Rakhal's formative years. God is our Father, our very own. How shall I reach him? This budding outer worldliness was more than a little alarming to Rakhal's parents. Their solution, the usual one, was to marry him off at a tender age of 16, did nothing to stem the rushing tide of his dispassion. Ironically, it had exactly the opposite effect, for as fate would have it, Rakhal's new brother-in-law was Manmohan Mitra, in whose company he would visit Dakshineshwar for the first time. The master had implored Mother Kali fervently, "Mother, I want someone for my constant companion. Bring me a boy who is like myself, pure-hearted and intensely devoted to you." So Rakhal's coming was in the most literal sense an answer to Master's prayer. A few days later, Sri Ramakrishna had a vision of an unknown youth standing alone under a sprawling banyan tree within the temple compound. In another vision, Mother Kali placed the same boy on his lap with the puzzling declaration, "This is your son." Yet, another vision, the Master saw his spiritual son dancing together with Shri Krishna atop a giant lotus blossom, whose petals shimmered ethereally on the waves of the Ganges. Bewitched by this exquisitely graceful dance, the Master's consciousness soared. Some moments later, on returning to his senses, Sri Ramakrishna was astonished to see the very youth of his visions walk through the open doors of his room, accompanied by Manmohan Mitra. At first, he could do little more than gape in wonder. Then, recovering his balance, he turned smiling broadly to Manmohan and said, "There are wonderful possibilities in him," as he gazed with unconcealed pleasure at Rakhal. From the beginning, there was an electricity between the two which was hard to account for, as they chatted together with the easy familiarity of dear old friends, and neither of them seemed surprised at this immediate, full-blown relationship. Each instinctively recognized in the other the materialization of his own deepest and most secret prayer. Rakhal was thrilled beyond words to meet someone who actually knew God, and Sri Ramakrishna was equally thrilled to find an unencumbered soul who yearned as deeply as he himself had yearned to know him. In no time at all, they were inseparable companions. Rakhal felt absolutely free with the Master. There was a joking, playful quality in this relationship between the two of God's eternal children. The 17-year-old disciple would lie on his Master's lap, climb onto his shoulders, and would play games with him. The guileless child in Rakhal found a welcome haven in Dakshineshwar. The childlike freedom and security which Sri Ramakrishna offered Rakhal quickly ripened into a spiritual joy for the young disciple. As the Master later recalled, no wonder, no words can describe Rakhal's mood during that period. He was in a state of ecstasy most of the time. He was like an infant in his mother's arms, completely surrendering to her, always conscious of the divine relationships. Master, on the other hand, reciprocated with the maternal love in every sense, tenderly feeding him specially prepared dishes and fussing over him as anxiously as a doting mother. Master felt he was Mother Yasoda with her divine child Krishna. For Sri Ramakrishna, there was no such thing as human love, and in the pure-souled Rakhal, the God within was unveiled, so even the thought of Rakhal was sufficient to kindle the flame of Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual consciousness. Why is my spiritual feeling awakened at the sight of Rakhal? Master once reflected. The more you advance towards God, the less you see of His glories and grandeur. The aspirant at first has a vision of the goddess with 10 arms. There is a great display of power in this image. The next vision is that of the deity with 2 arms. There are no longer 10 arms holding various weapons and missiles. Then the aspirant has a vision of Gopal Krishna as a cowherd boy, in which there is no trace of power at all. Sri Ramakrishna has now come full circle from his worship of Mother Kali in the temple to his worship of Kali within the temple of the human form. As his intimacy with the mother increased, the mother appeared to him in increasingly more intimate guises. Master was unable to avoid her, but it was in his devoted young followers like Rakhal that the Divine Mother shone most brilliantly. And it was through his loving and patient guidance of these pure souls that Sri Ramakrishna now worshipped the God in man. Even though the Master worshipped that indwelling divinity with the love of an indulgent mother for her dearest child, he did not hesitate on that account to administer stronger medicine when called for. On one occasion, while massaging Sri Ramakrishna with oil, Rakhal pleaded with the Master to grant him this boon of samadhi. At first, Sri Ramakrishna ignored him, but when the badgering persisted, he turned to Rakhal and scolded him for his presumptuousness. Deeply hurt, Rakhal smashed the bottle of oil on the floor and ran off through the temple grounds, crying bitterly. No sooner had he reached the gate, however, than his feet locked firmly beneath him. Paralyzed, unable to move another step, he collapsed in a quivering heap at the center of the path. Ramlal, Master's nephew, was sent to fetch Rakhal. With gentle diplomacy, he finally succeeded in assuaging Rakhal's anger, and the two young men returned together to Master's room. Was Sri Ramakrishna really angry at Rakhal's desire for spiritual ecstasy? Or was it Rakhal's impatience, his greed for spiritual experience, or his childish temper that was being mercifully exposed to Sri Ramakrishna's stinging but healing balm? The full import of this incident is shrouded in the depths of two souls, the Guru and his disciple. A few days later, the Master's medicine did take effect when, while massaging Sri Ramakrishna's feet, Rakhal spontaneously attained for the first time the transcendental state of samadhi for which he had pleaded earlier. In the months that followed, Rakhal progressed rapidly under the Master's watchful gaze. Those who knew him marveled at how serene and gentle he had become, repeating the name of God just under his breath at all times, absorbed in a mellow bliss. It was precisely towards fostering this inward purity in his disciples that Sri Ramakrishna worked tirelessly as a spiritual teacher. He used to say that only the pure can see God, and that all spiritual disciplines have one aim alone: the purification of the turbid water of the self. With Sri Ramakrishna's grace and blessings, may we all strive for this purification in our own spiritual life. Hari Om Tat Sat.
तुझसे हमने दिल को लगाया, जो कुछ है सो तू ही है। तुझसे हमने दिल को लगाया, जो कुछ है सो तू ही है। एक तुझको अपना पाया, एक तुझको अपना पाया, जो कुछ है सो तू ही है। तुझसे हमने दिल को लगाया, जो कुछ है सो तू ही है। सबके मकान दिल को मकीन तू, कौन दिल है जिसमें नहीं तो। सबके मकान दिल को मकीन तू, कौन दिल है जिसमें नहीं तो। हर एक दिल में तू ही समाया, हर एक दिल में तू ही समाया। जो कुछ है सो तू ही है। तुझसे हमने दिल को लगाया, जो कुछ है सो तू ही है। क्या मलायक क्या इंसान, क्या हिंदू क्या मुसलमान, क्या मलायक क्या इंसान, क्या हिंदू क्या मुसलमान। जैसे चाहा तूने बनाया, जैसे चाहा तूने बनाया। जो कुछ है सो तू ही है। तुझसे हमने दिल को लगाया, जो कुछ है सो तू ही है। सोचा समझा देखा भला, तू जैसा न कोई ढूंढ निकला। सोचा समझा देखा भला, तू जैसा न कोई ढूंढ निकला। अब यह समझ में जाफर की आया, अब यह समझ में जाफर की आया। जो कुछ है सो तू ही है। तुझसे हमने दिल को लगाया, जो कुछ है सो तू ही है। एक तुझको अपना पाया, एक तुझको अपना पाया। जो कुछ है सो तू ही है। तुझसे हमने दिल को लगाया, जो कुछ है सो तू ही है। जो कुछ है सो तू ही है। जो कुछ है सो तू ही है। ओम श्री राम कृष्ण भगवान की जय। आंजनेयाय विद्महे वायुपुत्राय धीमहि, तन्नो हनुमान प्रचोदयात्। ओम श्री हनुमते नमः। दोहा श्री गुरु चरण सरोज रज, निज मन मुकुर सुधार। वरनो रघुवर विमल यश, जोदायक फलचार। बुद्धिहीन तनु जानिके सुमिरो पवन कुमार। बल बुद्धि विद्या देहु मोहि हरहु कलेश विकार। सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। पवन सुत हनुमान की जय। श्री अम्बे अम्बे मात की जय। चौपाई। जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर। जय कपीश तिहु लोक उजागर। राम दूत तुलित बल धामा। अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नामा। महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी। कुमति निवार सुमति के संगी। कंचन वरण विराज सुवेशा। कानन कुंडल कुंचित केशा। हाथ वज्र और ध्वजा विराजे। कांधे मूज जनेऊ साजे। शंकर सुवन केसरी नंदन। तेज प्रताप महाजगवंदन। विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर। राम काज करिबे को आतुर। प्रभु चरित्र सुनिबे को रसिया। राम लखन चिंतामन बसिया। सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सिया दिखावा। विकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा। भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे। रामचंद्र के काज सवारे। लाए संजीवन लखन जियाए। श्री रघुवीर हर्ष उर लाए। रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बड़ाई। तुम मम प्रिय भरत सम भाई। सहस बदन तुम्हरो यश गावे। अस कहि श्रीपति कंठ लगावे। सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीषा। नारद शारद सहित अहीशा। यम कुबेर दिक्पाल जहाते। कवि कोविद कहि सके कहाते। तुम उपकार सुग्रीवहि कीन्हा। राम मिलाए राजपद दीन्हा। तुम्हरो मंत्र विभीषण माना। लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना। युग सहस्र योजन पर भानु। लील्योताहि मधुर फल जानो। प्रभु मोद्रिका मिलि मुख माहि। जल्दी राम जय अचरज नाहि। दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते। सुगम अनुग्रह तुम्हरे तेते। राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे। होत न आज्ञा बिना पैसारे। सब सुख लहे तुम्हारी शरणा। तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना। आपने तेज समारो आपे। तीनों लोक हांकते कापे। भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे। महावीर जब नाम सुनावे। नाशे रोग हरे सब पीरा। जपत निरंतर हनुमत वीरा। सकल तुम साजा। और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे, शाश्वत जीवन फल पावे। चारों युग परताप तुम्हारा, है प्रसिद्ध जगत उजियारा। साधु संत के तुम रखवारे, असुरी कंदन राम दुलारे। अष्ट सिद्धि नवनिधि के दाता, असवर दीन जानकी माता। राम रसायन तुम्हारे पासा, सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा। तुम्हारे भजन राम को भावे, जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे। अंतकाल रघुपति पुर जाई, जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई। और देवता चेतन धरई, हनुमत से सर्व सुख करई। संकट हरे मिटे सब पीरा, जो सुमिरे हनुमत बलवीरा। जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई, कृपा करो गुरुदेव की नाई। जो शत बार पाठ कर कोई, छूटी बंदी महासुख होई। जोया परे हनुमान चालीसा, होय सिद्धि साखी गौरीसा। तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा, कीजय नाथ हृदय महादेवा। कीजय नाथ हृदय महादेवा। दोहा पवन तनय संकट हरण, मंगल मूर्ति राम लखन सीता सहित, हृदय बसो सुरभूप। सियावर रामचंद्र की जय, पवन सुत हनुमान की जय। श्री अम्बे अम्बे मात की जय।
Om Namo Narayanaya, dear sisters and brothers. Prayer is the best way to be safe. Sri Ramakrishna always encourages us to chant the name of God. The Master says, if a person leaves home while chanting the sacred name of Ma Durga, then Lord Shiva himself protects him or her with his celestial weapons. Make a habit of repeating God's name as often as possible and sit quietly to meditate every day. This will fill us with peace and inner confidence. Om Shanti. Shanti, Shanti.
ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु, सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु, सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु, सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते, पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय वशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरि ॐ तत्सत्। जय श्री गुरु महाराज की जय। महामाय की जय। स्वामी जी महाराज की जय। गंगा मात की जय। महावीर स्वामी जी की जय। सर्व ऋषि मुनियों की जय। पार्वती पतये हर हर महा